You're listening to the AFTERBUZZ TV network, now the largest new media platform on the web, and your #1 source for after-show entertainment.
Very good, Keith. Johnson.
The AFTERBUZZ Studios in Los Angeles, California. Presented by Maria Menounos and Bing.com and streaming live thanks to Akamai Technologies. This is AFTERBUZZ TV's Beauty and the Beast After Show. We'll break down tonight's episode and get you all the latest news and gossip. If you'd like to buzz in on tonight's show, you can buzz us at 424-256-1729. That's 424-256-1729. And now, another post-game wrap-up show for your favorite TV show. It's AFTERBUZZ TV's Beauty and the Beast After Show.
Hey, welcome to AFTERBUZZ TV. Bing is for doing, and we are doing Beauty and the Beast for you. It's the first ever episode. I'm your host, Alikona Bradford, and my lovely co-host,
Paige Sullivan.
And yes, we definitely want to get into this first season. It was a really exciting episode. I enjoyed it a lot. How about you?
I liked it because you don't know what to expect. I mean, you can read, and then when it actually happens, I was kind of like, oh, this isn't what I was thinking was about to happen here.
Yeah, it's a lot different from that 1980s version that we used to see.
Yeah.
That one was definitely a little bit more romantic, and this one is a lot more sci-fi.
Very sci-fi, and it gets you thinking a lot. It's not so much knowing what's happening and more the dynamics between the characters. It's everything. You want to know what's going to come next. You want to know what's happening. And this whole show kind of kept me on my toes, and I wasn't expecting that out of this.
Yeah, it's definitely... It runs a little bit like a CSI type show, but then you have that romance element and this mystery that's going on with the Beast and with the main character, who is Katherine Chandler. So it's definitely something that I look forward to seeing as to what will play out. But right now, why don't we get into introducing the characters a little bit for anybody who may have missed the show.
Right.
So, right away, let's get into Katherine Chandler. We talked about her a little bit last week. She starts off, we take the story back to 2003, where she's working at a bar. She's got an Ivy League education, and she just finished school. She's got a bright future ahead of her, and then she's leaving the bar one night, and you want to tell us what
her
happens?
car doesn't start. So it's cold. She calls her mom. Maybe the battery died. So her mom comes to help her, and her mom's it looked kind of like scrubs. I mean, I couldn't tell where she was.
I think
or
she was a
pajamas.
doctor. I'm almost positive she was a doctor.
That's what it seemed like, and I think that is going to play a big role down the line. But so her mom comes to help her jump the car, and this car pulls up with two men, and they try to wave them off, saying, "Bar's closed. We don't need your help." And then it turns out the men have loaded weapons, and they shoot her mother and attempt to shoot her until she runs away, which kind of brings us to the climax of that part of her life, the 2003 part of her life, where she loses her mother and something saves her in the woods from these people.
Right.
And people convinced her it was just an animal.
Yeah. Well, taking it back just a little bit, I don't know if you noticed this at home, but the gunmen, right away, they got out of the car and they shot her mother with the intent of shooting her. Mm-hmm. And later on in the series, we do find out that there are people that are actually following and tracking her mom. But I thought it was interesting that they waited to shoot her. Like, they chased her all the way down in the woods, and it's like they stood there hovering over her with a gun, but they didn't shoot her right away.
Yeah, I think it shows that there's more to this story than you think, and that, the less you know, the better.
Of course.
And you won't die. Obviously, as in any murder mystery sci-fi, the less you know, the better. And so, yeah, that was weird. It starts out at the beginning, and you're like, why are they killing this innocent mom and her daughter in a parking lot? It just doesn't make sense. And even as, you see the Beast in the woods saving her, I was still confused as to why the gunmen were there. I didn't get it. I was trying to figure out in my head, they didn't steal from them. They didn't take the car. They didn't, abuse them in any way. So why are they killing these women? I don't get it.
Yeah. Well, they obviously, and that's what led me to believe, like, you were looking specifically for somebody. You don't just go out and shoot somebody for absolutely no reason, just because. But anyways, progressing into our story, it's 7 years later, and then all of a sudden she grows up, and she's just this kick-butt detective. She's got all these martial arts skills, which we see later on in the show, and her character is very much so, I think, affected a lot by this incident. She's very guarded, possibly maybe very jaded, and that could have been why she took the career path of being
Yeah, they mentioned at the bar that she just wanted to go home and study for the LSATs. So you assume she was going to be a lawyer of some form, because to be a detective, I don't think you necessarily need to go to law school.
No, not at all.
So I think that night changed her life, and it led her to where she is today. And she's constantly bringing up her mother's case, and they mentioned that right away. Somebody, her coworker, says, "Oh, it's the same DNA as your mother's case that you're always talking about." So obviously this is something that she's held with her for a long time.
Definitely.
And she's not shaking, and she doesn't want to shake. She wants to know what happened to her mom, what the beast was, and what that chromosome was in the DNA that she, found out was part of the case. And there's no answers. And so I think her whole career is avenging her mother and getting answers for herself.
Exactly. And we'll backtrack just a little bit. Her finding this DNA, what happens is she comes across this case. There's a girl who is murdered. We don't know why, but there's this DNA. It's a fingerprint of somebody who's dead. So obviously this gets her wheels turning, and she's determined to figure out who these fingerprints belong to, which is Vincent Keller, who is our beast. And come to find out, her and her partner go investigating around the city, and she comes across this guy, and they have their first official meeting in his roommate's apartment.
Yeah, JT's apartment, his roommate.
Yes.
And they went to him just because he was the only person they knew he had a relationship with before he died. His brothers were killed in 9/11, and that's a huge part of this story, is that his brothers were killed in 9/11. He was going to be a doctor, and he immediately enlisted in the army and went overseas and was supposedly killed in Afghanistan. So he wasn't very friendly, didn't have a lot of friends at the hospital. So it was one of those things where who did he know? Who can tell us a little bit about this guy? And that's where you get JT, and it's kind of freaky when you talk about him as a beast and he's being hidden upstairs behind these caged walls in a warehouse. It's very strange way to look at it, but it's a cool play. I feel like this whole show is really playing off the Beauty and the Beast thing, but in a new take. It's like a new kind of beast. It's not the straightforward, Disney Beauty and the Beast
not
where
at
he's
all.
a beast.
Right, not at all. I mean, it does parallel a little bit of the 1980s version. Again, not so much full-on romance, but there is this character that is the beastly character that's going around town and avenging things, and very different, like you said, than from the Disney one. But also getting into JT a little bit, his character, he is a professor. He teaches science, and he's been friends with Vincent Keller since he was very little. So he's the only person that Vincent trusts with his secret. And so his feathers are a little bit ruffled when Katherine comes by and starts investigating, because obviously if they get found out, it puts them in great danger. So
right, and they hint to something more. They hint to a list of rules that Vincent has to follow, and that he's not supposed to leave, and he's not supposed to make contact with other people, and that they're working on some kind of antidote in the apartment, and you don't know why. And it makes sense because his roommate's a chemist of some sort, and so they're working on something that didn't work, supposedly. Didn't work. Vincent's still a beast. You don't know why. You don't know what happened. But that's why their bond is so close. And apparently, if people find out why they're working on this antidote, or the fact that they are working on this antidote, that's the bigger problem. And that's why having his fingerprints in a case is a huge deal, because if Vincent gets found out, then JT's also implicated in what's going to happen, and he's going to, lose his life, lose his job, just like Kat's mother did. So.
Right. Obviously, because I think the military is out to eliminate anything that could trace them back to their experiment gone wrong.
Exactly.
Which was to make these soldiers superhuman. I don't know if we got a chance to really cover that with you guys. Did we talk about that at all?
No, we didn't. It's interesting. It's kind of one of those things that it kind of reminds me of like an X-Men type thing. Like they have these superpowers that nobody else has, and apparently the military, he didn't even ask questions. Vincent says, I didn't ask enough questions. I didn't ask them why they were doing this to me. They show you them shooting something into his neck. And what it is, they're changing their DNA. They're changing the way their body works.
Super soldiers.
Exactly. They're super strong, fast. They can smell better. They can see better. But they have this internal rage that when they get adrenaline, they just can't be stopped. And so they were supposedly eliminated, but Vincent
survived.
Escaped. So, and who knows if anybody else did, but Vincent is definitely out there.
Yeah, and that's the thing too. It was really cool is he actually gave an interview, and they were asking him about that, and he was saying, I think it'd be really cool if he came across another character that was one of his old platoon buddies, and that could be a really cool storyline, because he's learned to control his rage and his anger, but who's to say if there is one other wandering around soldier who can. So it could be this huge battle. I mean, this story can go in so many different directions. So I think that's what's really cool about the way they decided to take this story.
I think it's also interesting because within the being a beast and controlling yourself in your relationship with yourself, we had been discussing before the show that it's more a play on the beast that's within everybody. You know, everybody has that side to them. Everybody has a darker side or a side that they can't control. And that's more of what this show is playing on, too. It's not just that he is a beast and can't control himself and wants to kill everybody. It's more, you know, every day you meet people who have baggage, who have
that you fall in love with their charm, and there was actually a really cool quote that one of the creators had written, and I wanted to read that to you guys. It says, "Which one of us doesn't love a beast, a guy with a lot of baggage?" And that's so true, because we always fall in love with the guys with the baggage. They're always mysterious, and you want to help them. And I think that's exactly what happens with Katherine too when they do meet. Is she almost falls in love with his story and has a lot of empathy for him because they connect in their own jaded heart way. And,
and he saved her life. I mean, he saved her. And
this is true.
And whether or not she knew it back then, now she knows it. And now he's that connection to her mom. And, you know, she's holding on to her mom so tightly that I think this is her way of forging the gap, you know, figuring out what happened. And she thinks he has the answers. And he doesn't think he has the answers. He doesn't know why her mom was involved, really. But it's her little bit of hope that she's going to find out what she needs to find out. And, I mean, he saved her life. Who doesn't love a guy who can do that?
My hero.
Right? And he saved it twice. He saved her life this episode, which goes into a lot more detail about what happened.
Yes. I love, you know, there was a highly anticipated train scene. We're kind of jumping forward a little bit, and that is the second time that he saves her life. Because the military has something to do with this whole murder thing, and she's putting together, you know, her own case with case that she's working on right now. So she goes to meet some people from the military, and she gets bombarded in the middle of this train station and totally attacked. And I personally love a girl that can kick butt, and she was throwing it down for the longest, but it came to that one moment. And then here he comes to save the day. And then he comes again because she's running down a train track, chasing after him. Swoop.
Yeah,
you know?
I mean, and it was 3 against 1. She held her own. That girl was tough. And that's fun to see. And coming from, you know, a girl who looks kind of frail. She doesn't look like she'd pack a punch like she was, or that she'd have those skills. I mean, she carries a gun. That's one thing. But being able to ward off 3 different people. And instantly when that scene was happening, you're like, something's wrong here, because the homeless guy and then this other girl, all of them start like forming this like eye thing, and you're like, oh, something's about to happen. And I hadn't really looked into this train scene, so I was kind of blown away. I was like, whoa, I did not see that coming.
Well, you know, she actually has some past martial arts experience, so I think that probably made it a little bit easier for her to prep for this whole entire scene too. So I thought it was kind of cool.
Yeah, no, she's been a part of shows where she has to really.
Oh wait, didn't she do? She did.
Smallville.
Yeah, well, Smallville, and she also did. What was it? She did a martial arts film too. It'll come to me later on. But anyways, I just thought it was really neat. And another really cool thing is you do have 2 female leads in a sense, because her partner Tess Vargas, who is this sassy New York chick who kind of keeps her in line, keeps her eye on her when she's acting a little bit funny, but instead of seeing 2 guys in the lead of the show, you have these 2 really strong women, and a show that's created by 2 very strong women too. So I think that's kind of neat.
I think it's nice to see. You know, it's usually a woman and a guy, or, you know,
exactly.
If the woman is there, you know what I mean? And so, I mean, every CSI type show has the women there. I think you have to for the show to work. But this is cool. It's and her partner, I mean, that accent is so thick, and it's just, you know, you feel like you're in New York, even though it's not filmed there. You feel like you're like there, and she really brings it home. I think her partner, and because I mean, Kat doesn't have an accent really in the show. You can't tell where they are at first, and then her partner talks, and you're like, okay. All right, I know where we are. So, I mean, it's fun to see. It's fun to see the dynamics, because that's another relationship she has, a person she trusts, and a person who in the show says, you know, if you need anything, I'm here. And so that's nice. You always want to see a girl have a good friend.
Yeah, exactly. Well, speaking of accents, Jay Ryan, you don't really hear his accent too much. He's from New Zealand. And I want to talk about his character a little bit. We talked lightly about how he was a military guy and he got transformed into this beast and whatever, but I want to talk about the dynamic between the 2 of them, because there is going to be more romance as the show progresses. We didn't get to see a whole lot of that. We just saw that initial, like, you can tell there's some tension, but at the same time he's pushing her away because he's afraid of what he can do to her, and she just wants to, And I think she's just really intrigued by his character.
I think she's interested, and I think that there's that appeal again. I mean, he saved her life. He's this huge part of her life that has been missing, and I mean, it doesn't hurt that he looks so good.
Yes.
I mean, he's a good-looking guy, and so I think you can see that when they're staring at each other in the eye when they first see each other. It's just like this instant bond. You can feel like I thought they were gonna kiss. I really did. I was like, they're gonna do it, and I was questioning why they would do that the first episode, and then they didn't. But you can definitely tell there's something brewing in that relationship.
Well, I mean, she touches his face, and right away you can see he likes it, but he's like, no, get away, because it's obviously something scary for him, because he's so dangerous in a sense to where he can't control himself. But speaking of the fact that we thought he was going to kiss her and he didn't, it's the elongating of, I think, that whole romantic roller coaster, which I think is going to be huge in this show, because I think there'll be moments where they'll get so close, but something is always going to wedge them apart. And what I thought was really cool, too, something that Jay mentioned in an interview, was that this whole show is just taking it back to the more romance part of, like, evening TV. It's not like, let's just jump into bed with each other, let's, be on the computer or do-da-da-da-da. Like, it's very old school, very let me write you a letter, let me throw a pebble at your window, or, I like that, because it's instilling, I think, that whole old school mentality.
No, I agree, and I like that it's different because it comes after a show that has a huge fan base. I mean, Vampire Diaries has a huge fan base, and now this show's coming, and it's playing along the same kind of line, vampires, werewolves, beasts. It's all that sci-fi thing.
Yeah.
But it's got a different, appeal to it. It's got more like you want to see these relationships blossom and develop. You don't want them just to hook up right away and have it be a fling. And I feel like other shows, especially in the CW, are a lot like that. There's a lot of hooking up. There's a lot of back and forth and trading boyfriends. And I think in this, it's really they have eyes for each other, and you can tell that from the get-go. And I think it'll be interesting whether or not it's outside forces. I don't think it would be, other people, but other, the military and maybe an antidote or things like that, or a case she's working on will be the things that draw them apart at points.
Definitely. And one of the things that I've also read about the show is that the cases, as we go along and the show progresses, are actually going to be relevant to what's going on in their relationship. And it'll tell their story through the case, which will be really interesting to see, I think, because I feel like he's going to start transforming a little bit more often. And that'll be a big, huge issue.
And it's fun to see. I mean, it's interesting to watch how they make him look like this scary guy, and like you can see the strength that he has.
I would say, how do you make such a good-looking guy look so scary?
Yeah, seriously. He looks scary. I'd be afraid of him if I saw him.
Yeah, definitely. I would be too, but I don't know. It works. It works for him.
It does. It does.
So really quick, I'm going to interrupt our scheduled program right now and just tell you guys, if you have any comments or you want to say anything that you would like us to talk about, definitely hit us up on iTunes. Leave your comments. Rate us. We always like to hear what you guys have to say. And you can
tell
also...
a friend.
Yeah, tell a friend.
And they can check
Pass
us
the
out.
word. Download us.
Yes.
All right, so let's go back into some of our characters. I want to go back into JT, which is his best friend. I don't know. What's your opinion of him?
I like him. I mean, who sticks by somebody who is technically he's probably some sort of felon. I mean, he's this, nobody knows he's alive, and if they find him, it's part of this huge conspiracy that nobody knows about. And so the fact that he's standing by a best friend in this kind of situation, I think it really tests his loyalty. And I don't know if many of my friends would house me if I was a beast and killed people by accident or was hiding from the military.
Yeah.
I think that shows that he's going to play a big role in his life, and he's a huge influence on Vincent and what he has become and why he's still around. And I like him. I like what he's doing as a friend. I mean, you don't really know much more about him other than who he is as his friend right now.
I think right now they showcase him as being that protector, that almost like parental unit for him and keeping him in line. But at the same time, again, the storyline could really go somewhere with that, because he is this really smart scientist. He is the one who's trying to come up with this antidote to cure something that has no cure. But maybe he knows a little bit something more than he lets on.
He may. I mean, he might know how to fix it, but maybe he just doesn't want to just give it to Vincent. Maybe he wants to give it to the military or something. You don't know where his motives lie.
Right.
I mean, right away you don't know that. I think we're definitely going to see that. And that's what's exciting about a new series like this. I mean, you're introduced to all these people, and who they are is still very unknown, and what their motives are and where their loyalties lie. It's an interesting dynamic to try and figure out.
Yeah. I think they're still figuring it out too. I mean, obviously, because like you said, it is in the very beginning. I don't know. I think they're still filming it, right?
As far as I know, yes, I'm almost positive, and they're in Canada, so I mean, it's very, you could tell it's kind of dreary in the show, and it's not sunny bright LA, but it's nice. I mean, I like the feel of the show. It feels mysterious. It feels
very
dark and rainy. It you know, it plays up the mystery of everything that's happening.
I think it is. It's going more towards that really, really dark aspect of the show. I mean, even internally, you're talking about somebody who has this huge internal demon within themselves, and they're really trying to fight off, because when he turns into the beast, a lot of times he doesn't even remember what happens. It's like a huge blackout. So he's killed people in the past as well, obviously bad guys, but we don't know if also too he's killed good people too, because there is that progression of becoming good. You know, he didn't start off that way right away.
Well, no, I think definitely when he was in Afghanistan, he killed people who shouldn't have been killed or did things he shouldn't have done. But I think now, I mean, you're really finding out, you find out as the murder case that's part of the show evolves, that his DNA has been connected to many cases.
Exactly.
But they think it's tainted. There's something wrong with it because of that change in his DNA. It just doesn't seem like a normal DNA that they would find, and so they just put it off as, oh, what we're looking at it with is broken, we need a new one.
Right.
And so finding out that, Kat kind of puts it together, you know, you're not a beast, you're helping people, like, you're helping these people who are either murder victims or victims of assault or anything, somebody who's in danger, and that's what he's been doing with his time. So as much as he sees himself as a beast, he's using what makes him a beast for the good of people.
Exactly. But, and that's what I think she brings to the relationship too, is this sense of calmness. You know what I mean? Like, obviously he's learned to control it, but I think she's going to be the one, like you said, who's going to really allow him to see the good in himself, because he's got a lot of guilt for things that he's done, and just also because he was the only one that survived too.
And I think everybody needs that in their life. I mean, everybody doubts themselves and it needs somebody to support them. And whether or not that's your boyfriend or your mom or your friend or whatever, I mean, other people bring out the good in you. But there's also those friends who bring out the bad in you. And you never know if the beast was with somebody else, or say JT turned bad, who he would be or what he would do. And so I think having somebody to really influence him in a positive light, and who knows, I mean, she's a detective, he's helping people. I mean, they can really work together here, and in more than just a relationship, but in her life, in her job, in her career, and they can use each other to each other's benefit. I think that'll be interesting.
Right. Now, what do you think that he has to offer to the relationship, though, just outside of that?
Compassion. I just feel like he knows what she went through. I mean, he was there at her darkest moment, you know. He has a first-hand view of what happened to her, and I think that's what nobody else gets. They're like, oh, let go of it, your mother died, like, get over it, like, deal with it. And he's the only one who's not going to do that. So I think he's going to be like the strong person for her, because she's been so strong and she's been so determined that now she needs somebody to be there for her, like when things come crashing down on her, which, you know, they might, or she might find out something about her mom that, you know, ruins her, and so she needs somebody there to catch her kind of when she falls, and I think that's who the beast is.
And I think it's interesting that she does find out towards the end of the show that she is being tracked by the military, and that initially they were out for her mom first, because, like, there's a whole nother, like, well, what was her mom doing? What was her mom involved in? And
Kat mentions, oh, my mom had a bunch of this in our house. She had, you know, it looked like a chemistry lab. And
that's a good call.
She mentioned that to JT, and she mentioned it to Vincent, actually, but it was JT's things. You know, don't worry, my mom had this stuff all around our house, which makes you believe maybe her mom knew more than she should have known. Maybe her mom was working towards something she shouldn't have been doing, or not shouldn't have been doing, what the military didn't want her to be doing. And when the beast says they came for her, they were following her, they meant to find her, that's what makes you think, oh, like, this brings it all together. This is why these two met. And maybe that's even why the beast was there. He was wondering why they were following her mom, and it just happened that she's there as well, and that's how they meet. I mean, it's very strange how their paths cross.
Well, I mean, okay, so we know that her mom was a doctor, but it's possible that also too she could have been a part of that whole conspiracy. Like, she could have been part of the people who created him.
She could have been. I mean, that's what you don't know. That's the beauty of it. It's like, you know, it's connected somehow. You just don't know why or where it's going to lead or exactly who she was in the scheme of things.
Exactly. So let's get into, I want you to be able to hear a little bit about what's going on in the future, but I know we have a little bit more of the bulk of the story to talk about. We really didn't get into the case of the actual show. And I want to talk about that too, because it shows Katherine's just alertness and her intelligence. And I like that a lot about her too as well. So going into the case a little bit, we know that there is, I mean, it's your typical crime scene investigation. There's a girl that's murdered. I like the story behind what really happened when we find out who killed her and why.
I do too, and I like the fact that it's going to be murders or cases are going to happen throughout this show, and that's part of what, you know, like you said, it's going to kind of foreshadow what's happening in their relationship. But that's also a whole other storyline. You get to get excited for every week. It's going to be a new thing every week, and it won't just be the same relationships evolving. It'll be new people, new stories every week. And this one, I mean, it was exciting. I mean, it's a woman died, but there's the cause of death was poison.
Exactly.
And so you have to wonder, why was she found passed out? You know, why was Vincent's fingerprints there? Which you find out he's just trying to help her and resuscitate her. But it's, you know, who killed her? Who wanted this woman dead? And it was very interesting to see it play out. It always is. And I never get it right. I always think I know who it is, but I never get it right. So
me neither.
I was very off this time.
Yeah. So just to give you guys a recap, if you didn't get to watch the show, basically there was a gentleman whose wife was killed. She was poisoned. And lost my train of thought.
Well, he had been sleeping with a bunch of different women, which we find out. We know he didn't kill her. We don't think he killed her. But what we do think is one of his mistresses did.
Exactly.
And so it turns out that her assistant, Emily, she first alerted us, oh, you know, there's this other woman who wanted the job that she just got. I mean,
and we're thinking that's why she killed her.
She's the only one, I think, who could hate her.
Yeah.
And so she kind of leads you off the track, but down the line, gross enough, there's bed bugs. And so the bed bugs have DNA of all these women that he's been sleeping with. And so you think, who are these women? Why would they want her dead? And he has them all convinced that he has a prenup. And if he is caught cheating, then he loses everything.
Yeah.
And
total lie. Typical man.
He's lying. And it's really just to keep every single one of these women wrapped around his finger.
Right.
And one obviously took it too far.
Right.
And that was her assistant who was also sleeping with her husband. And she thought she was pregnant.
Yeah.
And so she stole one of the beauty products and tampered with it.
Yeah. It's a tobacco, I think, that she had put in nicotine.
Put
there you go. And
nicotine
it was in her shampoo for blondes.
Exactly.
Shampooed her hair and it penetrated her skin, and then hours later.
Yeah, 4 hours later, 5 hours later, she's dead. And I mean, I didn't see that coming. And but it's an interesting twist. The bed bugs gross me out a little bit.
Yeah.
But it's interesting to see. I mean, this guy had all of them fooled. And like Katherine said to him, you know, you didn't kill your wife, and we know you didn't kill your wife, but you're the reason she's dead. And that's sad. It's sad to see that things really can take that turn. I mean, people take things very seriously. Yeah. And cheating is no joke, people.
No, it's
Don't
not.
cheat.
Don't do that.
No. You saw what happened.
Exactly.
Here on Beauty and the
exactly.
Beast.
And did you notice by chance how the forensics gentleman kind of had a crush and he kept on asking Katherine out? I think that could also turn into something.
Yeah, he likes her, and he finds out that she got broken up with, which happens at the beginning of the episode. It's kind of like a little blip in her radar, you know. Guy thought it was hot. She was a detective, but in reality, not so hot. She's always busy. She's running late. She's never there when she says she is. So he dumps her. She gets him arrested, so it's all good.
Yeah.
But he definitely wants her, and he escorts her to her father's engagement party.
Yeah.
So I think that is a relationship that could definitely develop, because everybody wants what they can't have, and this guy wants her, and I don't think she sees that so much as, oh, you're such a great friend, thanks for coming to my father's engagement party with me, I appreciate it. Like, I don't think she sees it so much as something that's going to develop, but at the same time, I don't think her focus is men. No,
not at all.
Even with the Beast now, it's not. I don't think she sees that romantically yet at all. So it's really just like, oh, okay.
I think she does. I think she does a little bit, just because she showed up to work the next day and her partner was like, "You have a glow. What's going on?" And it was right after she had that moment with him.
That's true. I mean, it might just be a glimpse of a beginning to an end for her, though. You know, I mean, he might be the way she gets all her answers. So you never know. I mean, but I just feel like she's such a focused woman that relationships have never been on her mind.
Right.
But I think with the Beast,
I think he caught her off guard, though. I think that emotion for him, it caught her off guard, because I think with any other guy, she's probably had a wall up and not letting anybody in, which is what you see with the other gentleman. His name is Evan Marks. And I think that's how she treats all her guys. Because like you said at the beginning of the show, there's another gentleman that she'd just been dating, and he totally like disses her for somebody else because she's just unavailable.
Exactly. And she doesn't even seem too hurt by it. She's kind of just like,
oh, well, whatever.
Yeah, exactly. Whatever. Like, she moves on, and it's not a big deal. So I think for her, I mean, she's a good-looking girl. She's a tough girl. I think people will want to date her, and I definitely think the guy in forensics is, she's on his radar, for sure. Yeah, for sure.
Another, and he's a Brit hottie, too, so another... Yeah. I like all these different accents going around in the television show.
But the Beast, I have to say, in the show, you really don't hear it.
This is true. Yeah, you know what? He covered it up pretty well.
I like that. I like when I don't know they have an accent when I'm watching the show, and then I'm reminded of it in an interview. I think that's very interesting because it makes me believe them more. You know, if I could hear that little bit of his accent, or it wasn't authentic English, I think I would have a harder time, you know, believing him, and I like that about him. I don't question him at all. Yeah, it's nice.
And speaking of acting too, I just want to say that I think that Kristen is an amazing actress. Like, I loved her in this. I used to watch her in Smallville, but just even from the opening scene, because I was on the edge of my chair right when the show started. She's running through the woods, and obviously her mom gets killed, and she just totally cracks. Like, after he saves her and she's just left by herself in the woods, and you see that tear fall, I'm like, oh God. I don't know. I just thought it. I don't know.
No, I think it's a great cast. I think, a diverse cast. They
Definitely.
have a bunch of different. It's not just a bunch of hot guys and girls running around like you might see in another show on the CW. Everybody with their shirts off. It's kind of, you know, you have JT. He's like the geeky chemist,
which is
and
perfect.
Yeah. And her partner too. She's not a feminine girl.
No,
she's
not at all.
She's not a smoking hot detective. I mean, she's pretty.
She's undercover sexy, I think.
But she's, you know, tough. I think that must have been a hard show to cast for because the people are all so different from one another. It's very interesting. But speaking of the shows, AfterBuzz TV, our fall lineup, we have 50 shows. And look at this. First one of Beauty and the Beast. So we have a lot of new shows that are premiering. Nashville premiered last night. So make sure to check us out on AfterBuzzTV.com to see all 50 of our shows if you're interested in all of them. We have a lot to offer, so make sure you check us out.
Yes. Are you hosting any other shows?
I am. I'm hosting Castle, Heart of Dixie, and Beauty and the Beast.
Wow, there you go. And then you can also catch me on America's Next Top Model.
Oh, nice.
Too. Yeah. All these shows with this wonderful makeup.
I know.
You got him with all the prosthetics, which I'm sure he has to sit there for hours doing all that stuff. But that's pretty cool, too.
I would love to talk to the people who do that, who transform him, because crazy. Yeah. Crazy. And it's not just special effects that you see. So.
Yeah,
they
definitely.
do stuff to, I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Because, you see, I was saying, when he transforms into the Beast, like, everything about him looks so different. I almost wonder if some of that is computer generated or if it is
I feel like it has to be. I feel like, I mean, you know, when you see his face transform.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's true. Yeah, obviously good call.
But I like that about this show. It makes it so much more sci-fi. And it's so much more believable than I'm sure past sci-fi shows have been, especially if this was the original Beauty and the Beast. I'm sure their Beast wasn't as, you know, realistic as this. But they still make him a man. You know, he's still a man. He's still relatable. He's still somebody that you can see and, you know, you want her to like. He's not scary all the time. And I like that.
I like that he's very headstrong, but so is she. Like, they have one moment where they have an argument and she's just like, you help me, just you know, whatever. And he's like, no, you're too, you know, I'm too dangerous. But they kind of bump heads, and I feel like it's going to be like that also too as the episodes progress as well. And I'm curious to see what develops with his rage, because I feel like also too it's just going to get worse and worse.
No, I agree. A lot's going to happen in this first season, I think. Definitely.
Agree. Yeah. So I want to get into a few predictions, speaking of.
And now, your AfterBuzz TV predictions.
So what do you think?
You know what? I think, well, I actually kind of already started to mention that I think the Beast is going to come out a little bit more. I think that the show is going to go first very, very dark before it gets really, really like happy and romantic. I think that he's going to have that struggle between humanity, him being human, and then him becoming this beast. And so I'm curious to see what's going to happen with that as well too, because it's obviously going to push her further and further away. I don't know if she's going to still cling on to him or if she's just going to maybe go for that forensics guy.
I think the beauty of a show like this is it's so new and it has so many possibilities. The predictions are honestly endless right now. I mean,
Yeah.
there's so many different relationships, so many new characters who we haven't met yet, and I honestly just see Katherine really opening up and becoming a person and not so much, a detective. I feel like she doesn't have that in her right now. It's very, closed off. So I'm excited to see what happens. I'm excited to see it develop.
I am too, definitely. All right. Well, where can we find you if we want to follow you?
Yeah, you can check me out on Twitter at Paige Sell, and that's Paige with an I, FYI, everybody.
All right. And I'm Alikona Bradford. You can follow me on Twitter at Kiss My Passport or on Facebook and Tumblr, Alikona Bradford. And that wraps up tonight's show. We're so excited, and I know I can't wait to see what's happening the rest of the season.
Me either. I'm excited for this season. Woo, first good show.
Yeah. Thank you very much for joining us. And again, don't forget to log on to iTunes, download us, and rate us.
From Bing.com, executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.